This video is sponsored by Simply Safe. There's no safe like Simply Safe. I've got a Lego problem, and it's not a problem. I can quit anytime I want to. What I mean is a Lego storage problem. I've been collecting Legos since before I can remember, and I've still got every single set in those boxes right there. And you might be thinking, a few years ago, didn't Bob build a really big, cool Lego storage table for his kids to hold all their bricks? And yes, I did, and it works great for them, but these are mine. The fact of the matter is, I've already separated out most of my bricks, and they're in containers, but the containers are all different, they're not labeled, and a lot of them are full, so I don't have any room to take other sets apart to add to my inventory. And today, we're gonna fix at least most of that. Now usually when I start a video, I have at least a rough idea of what the solution is gonna be. But not today. Today, I've just got a list of problems. The first and probably biggest thing is storage. I need bigger containers and more of them, and I need them to be in a way that I can actually see what's in them and find the stuff that I need. I also constantly have extra parts. Anytime I build a set, there's always a few extra pieces, and instead of finding where they go, I end up just kind of putting them in a cup or dropping them on the floor. I need a way to handle those. And a lot of storage is fantastic, but I also need to organize them. I need a way to know what's in the containers. I need some sort of labeling or inventory or some way to keep track of it all. The last two things are maybe not as important, but they're still on my mind. I've got every instruction book of every set that I've ever had, which is a lot. And I would like to somehow store them, organize them, something, just so they don't get lost. And then I also need some sort of deconstruction storage. When I take sets apart, but I want to keep all the pieces together to build later, I put them in a bag, but I need a place to put all those bags. And it can be like in a storage room or something, but I still gotta figure it out. Let's start with storage. I've got this cool like standing desk workbench thing, and it rolls around. It's a nice work surface. It's got a couple of small drawers, and there's plenty of space underneath it. And I think we can design something to store everything down there. Of course, you can't design storage unless you know what kind of container you're gonna be using. And while a lot of people use the things from IKEA, I don't have an IKEA near me. I do, however, have a Walmart, and they've got these giant clear shoe boxes for about $7 each. They do have a couple of different sizes of these, so I may have to go back and mix it up a little bit, but I also found this. It's a little bit shorter, it has 3 separated sections, and the best thing about both of these is that they're clear, so you can see exactly what's inside them. So I pretty much know the containers I'm gonna use, I know the space that I have, so it's time to measure them both and head to Fusion. I've spent some time trying to lay these things out to make the most of that space underneath the desk. I've had to add a couple containers, which is cool because I'll have more storage, but I'm also taking into consideration the uprights and the shelves in between them, trying to get all the material in place. And it made me realize I should probably make these adjustable. And the big reason for that is, what if I don't need 9 large containers? What if I need to subdivide some of these into smaller containers? Well, I can add more of these over here or get some other containers. Anyway, I'm gonna make them adjustable. So I was about to go start cutting a whole bunch of dados and some plywood, but then I remembered slat wall. This is slat wall. It's a chipboard with routed grooves in it at every 3 inches. And if you want to hang stuff on this on the wall, you can slide in a piece of metal into each one of these grooves to make them stronger. Or you can stand it up like this and slide in a piece of plywood to make a shelf. I mean, at least I think. I haven't actually tried it yet, but it seems to me that I could cut this into stripes and then stack them up to make all the vertical pieces of that little cabinet area. I can slide in the shelves and move them up and down based on the containers that I want to put in there. There's a couple of small downsides, not really a big deal. The inside of these are a different color than the outside. I guess I could paint them, but whatever, these are for Lego. And then the other thing is that these slots are actually a little bit less than 1/2 inch. So if I put a 1/2 inch shelf in here, I'm either gonna have to open these up, which would be terrible and really time consuming, or I have to trim down the edge of the shelves so that it fits in here. And that's all right. Usually when I think something's gonna be really simple, it's not. I have to pivot just a little bit. Here's what I mean. If I was putting dados in a piece of plywood, I could space them out however I wanted to, have as many possible places for shelves as I needed based on the height of the containers. But with the slat wall, I don't have as many options. These are just over 2 inches apart, which is kind of a weird thing, and it actually just doesn't work with my 1/2-inch shelf idea. My original plan was to put a shelf like up here, so there was about 1 inch above each one of these little containers, and I would put 3 containers all the way up with plenty of gap. But I can't do that because I can't put a shelf right here in the middle. And if I move it down, it basically touches the top of the container if I use 1/2-inch plywood. However, if I use 1/4-inch material, that's gonna give me just a little bit of gap in each one of the slots so that there's a little bit extra space for the next container to set in. Basically, the bottom one will be really close, maybe tight, but the rest of them should be fine. The problem is 1/4-inch in a 1/2-inch slot. Of course, it will fit. I mean, there's extra room, but with the 1/2-inch, I was hoping that the friction would keep the shelf in place as you pulled the containers in and out. That's not gonna happen with these, but it's an opportunity to make another thing. This video is sponsored by SimpliSafe, and you've heard me talk about them a lot of times, so let me tell you about something that no other security system offers: ActiveGuard. ActiveGuard is this really cool thing where the monitoring agents can actually see through your outdoor cameras and see a potential threat coming up to your home and stop a break-in before it even happens. They can talk to the person, they can set off alarms, and they can even call the police before anything bad happens to stop it from happening, and that's awesome. They've also got an advanced AI technology that can recognize people that come over a lot, friends and family, so they won't trigger an alarm, but it will keep an eye out for foes, people who should not be there. And things like ActiveGuard are why SimpliSafe has been voted the best home security system for 5 years. I've been using them for twice that, and honestly, they're pretty great. So, if you want to get started, you go to simplisafe.com/ILTMS, and then you build out a system, everything that you need for your home, and then it gets shipped to you in a box. You can set the entire thing up in about 30 minutes, and then you hook it up to the app. And in the app, you can arm it and disarm it, obviously, but you can watch all of your cameras, you can check on all the batteries and your sensors, and you can do everything you need right from here. Also, monitoring is about $1 a day. It's really inexpensive, but even still, there's no long-term contract. You can cancel it anytime you want to. SimpliSafe is a fantastic way to protect your home and the stuff in it, but more importantly, the people in your home. So be sure to go to simplisafe.com/ILTMS and build out a system. Using that link is gonna give you 50% off the whole thing, and that's a really, really good deal. Go check them out, and big thanks to SimpliSafe for sponsoring this video. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Nice. That actually worked out super well. It's a really nice tight fit in the slot, and it's a nice tight fit for the shelf to fit down into it, which means now I have basically the shape that I can expand out and make a cover for this entire surface. That'll be great because this chipboard is not going to take paint very well. And yes, I do recognize the irony that I saved time and mess from cutting dados, but I had to spend that time designing and 3D printing pieces. But this is more fun. I put a little bit of CA glue in between those melamine panels just to like temporarily hold them together, and it made it much faster and easier to assemble this thing, but that glue is not going to do much. Melamine is super slick, and you have to have a certain type of glue to glue it to itself or other stuff. So I'm going to go back and drive in some screws, but also the chipboard is a problem. I don't want to move this thing until it's really tied together because the screws into a little bit of chipboard is not very strong. Unfortunately, all of these pieces have a void right in the middle on each end, and that's kind of where I put the screw. So there's a big section here that actually doesn't have any contact. All of these joints could fold over very easily and break. If I left it like this, it would not be strong enough, but if we put a panel on the back and then drive screws into all these faces, that's actually gonna make it a whole lot stronger. So far this is working out really well, but I am changing my mind about the 3D printed inserts. I really like this idea and the fact that you can print things to fit in really unique spaces, but when it comes down to it, it's not very efficient to make these and put them in all of these, and then you still have this surface to deal with. So instead, I'm just gonna cut some strips of wood and screw them on over these openings to hold the shelves in place, but since they're screwed on, I can take them off if I need to move the shelves. Not as cool, but way simpler. All right, I don't think this is gonna win any design awards or anything, but the paint actually helps it look a little bit more finished. Before it's actually finished, there's one more little convenience I want to address, and it's this. These containers are different depths, and so this one's all the way back, and you only have a little gap here. This one's all the way back, and you got quite a bit. And it's a super simple fix. You just push the container all the way back, measure the gap on the front, and then you make a spacer that's that same size. You put the spacer all the way against the back wall, and that creates a stop for the container. So I think that thing's pretty much done, and that's my biggest pain point, storing all the bricks. So the last thing is to load up the bricks and just hope that it's enough storage for the majority of it. So we can move on to the next little pain point, which was those extra pieces that come with every set. I have made Lego sorters before, actually a couple of them, but the thing I'm talking about here are the individual tiny pieces that are left over from sets, and they're usually about this size. So I don't need to make something that's really big, but I'll probably make it for bigger than this. Basically, I just want some sort of a bin that I can dump all these pieces into, but then that is surrounded by other little tiny bins. Maybe all the way around, I don't know, I haven't really thought about this. But the point being, there's a little opening in each one of these things where I can take pieces and I can flick them down into these different size bins to get them separated. But then those bins need to be able to lift out so I can then dump them in the correct container. So it was kind of a quick design off the top of my head, and the first prints are done. You could say they taught me things. So my original thought was that you'd start with this little bowl. It's even got a cool little handle in the middle of it, and you dump all the pieces in here when you finish the set. This could live down inside there and be covered up with that until you're ready to separate them. Then you can take this out, dump them into the middle of this, and then spread the pieces out through the opening into the appropriate little cup, and then that cup could be taken to dump into the right container. But we've got some problems. I mean, it's a cool idea, I think, but we have both mechanical and usability problems. The mechanical stuff is easy to overcome. The usability stuff, we're gonna have to kind of rethink some things. So for the usability stuff, what I'm talking about is the fact that like this top, it doesn't really stay in place. It needs to be locked in a position and not spin. It also wouldn't actually work very well because if you dump the pieces in here, there's nothing to stop them from just bouncing out. We've got a lot of holes around it and there's no concave in the middle to kind of center the pieces. And the fact that this spins and doesn't stay seated, that's a mechanical problem as well. But the other ones are the fit. That comes out and goes in very easily. This one, it's like really, really inconsistent. I don't exactly have solutions for these yet, but I can easily just make this shorter. It doesn't have to hold that much stuff. And with that shorter, that gives me a little bit more area to actually make a dip in the center of this, a concave, so that the pieces will try to fall down in here, and then I can slide them out through the correct hole. But the thing I haven't figured out yet is how to make this thing not spin, how to hold it in place without having a really crazy underside that's gonna be difficult to print. But I'll figure it out. Okay, so I could take these castle parts and make them a part of the lower section, and then the center with the little ramps is the thing that drops in. So it can't spin because it's locked in place. I can put a little bowl shape in the middle of it. I think that'll work. I think that'll work. I think that'll work. So the storage is way better, although I'm sure I will continue to change it over time, but the prints are done, so we need to see if this thing works. You can keep the parts in there until you're ready to sort them. Then you drop this thing in. So I would say this thing's probably a decent version 1. It could definitely use some improvement, but I think it works perfectly fine for separating those pieces out. You can set it on your lap while you're watching TV and just get them all separated out so you can put them in a container like this. I'm still gonna have containers like this. I've got groups of small pieces that fit perfectly in stuff like this, and they can go on the shelf. These big containers are for a lot of the same type of thing. For the label holders, I made a really simple but cool 3D model. It's 2 pieces, they print flat, and you can change the size of this with parameters. Once you print them out, the 2 pieces snap together, become one thing, and have a little slot in the top for you to slide in a label. I haven't done anything groundbreaking. I mean, I did some basic storage, some custom labels, and then a cool little tool to separate the bricks, but you saw this area at the beginning of the video, right? Check it out now. Now this area is going to continue to evolve and change as I use it, but it just goes to show you that a little simple construction, simple containers you can get anywhere, some organization and labeling can make a chaotic area way better. And I am finally looking forward to using this section. There's one problem left. It's that I have to take this thing apart. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll catch you next time. And you can cut on that. I hate this set. I hate this. This is the worst set because other than that piece right there, it's all gray. But I'm changing my mind about these little 3D. I know the space that I have, so it's time to fusion. That's the word that means measure and go to fusion.